we're going to call the meeting to order. Some of you may still be eating, so just continue to eat, no problem, but we will call the meeting to order. Our first, sorry, yeah. I thought my voice carried more than enough. Yeah. Okay, are we good to go? Can you hear me? Can you hear me now? Anyway, the first order of business is going to be a couple of items that we're going to bring up in the discussion period. First, welcome to Sherry Fahim. Welcome to the library. Paul will say a few more words about your position and tell us all about you.
Yeah, we're very pleased to introduce the board Sherry Fahim. She is our new Director of Digital Technology and Creation. She has quite an extensive experience, most recently about 15 years at the City of Toronto in IT leadership capacities. She has a Master's of Public Administration. She also is certified in ITIL, IT Infrastructure Library. She's an engineer originally by training who graduated from the University of Cairo. So we're really excited to have Sherry, and she's been here just since the 2nd, and already she's helped us, or the 9th I should say, but she's already getting into things, and I think she's really going to be a strong member of our leadership team, and is really going to help us in terms of continuing to move technology forward. So welcome, Sherry.
Thank you. Welcome, Sherry. We're going to add 2 more items to the discussion period. First of all, there's a few things I think the board needs to know about the Carlisle Library. First, I want to settle everybody's concerns over the fact that there's no change to or you're not being asked to change anything to do with the motion we passed where we would look at the numbers after Waterdown was open a year. So nothing happens until Waterdown is open at least a year, and then we'll assess the numbers and see what it's done to the Carlisle distribution numbers, etc., and if they're whatever those numbers warrant at that point in time. However, there's an opportunity because the rinks there are they're being improved considerably, and at the same time, the city is involved and is offering to do a feasibility study to let us know where and how a library could best fit into the new development around the rinks. Now, this feasibility study will cost the library nothing. The city is going to conduct this feasibility study. We feel it's a really good offer, and we should take their offer to do the study, and we'll take the benefit of it. We will have more of a report on Carlisle next week for you in your agenda packages, but in your meeting package. But I wanted to let everybody know that this is happening, and I don't believe that anybody really can object to that. We can object to someone giving us something for nothing really. We're going to take advantage of every opportunity. Now, Councillor Partridge, is there anything you want to say about this?
There we go. Is that it? Okay.
Yeah, you're on.
Bring it closer. Yeah, and thank you very much, Madam Chair. So just to let everyone know, this opportunity really came up as a result of some federal funding that we were very successful in getting for a new elevator tower that will be added to the Carlisle Arena. And our MP David Sweet worked very hard with us over the last couple of years, and we were able to get the federal funding for Carlisle Arena and for Beverly Arena as well. So that money and that tower has to be built in 2017, and the money expended. And so the city was moving ahead with that project anyway. And then, it just presented this opportunity to be able to look at more community space as well, because we do need more community space. And then with the library being there with the question mark, we thought, well, the city offered, let's include that in the feasibility study. It's not costing the library board anything. They have money in the budget. They're going to go ahead with it, and so I'm very, very excited. There is no decision to be made by the library board. As I say, the tower does go ahead. It will be built in 2017, but there's also opportunity for additional federal funding that the Liberals have put on the table. And that, we don't have any particulars on that. That's going to be rolled out in the next few months to let us know what those opportunities are. But they are looking for more partnerships. And when we look at what the library partnership is over Greensville right now, you know, again, that's a very exciting project. So I'm just very pleased that we're able to just move forward with the feasibility study. And that's it at this point.
Well, I think it's a wonderful opportunity for the library, and as I said, we're grateful to the city and to Councillor Partridge. Paul, do you have anything to say?
Oh, just to add, the intention is we met, and what is the next month we'll provide a preliminary report on Carlisle. It's only going to, we're not quite 6 months into the opening of Waterdown, but we'll do a preliminary report, and then the plan at that point would be that we would come back to the board at the end of the year, a year after, as planned, to do a full report. I guess the only thing that might change is if somehow there was a federal money before that. We're not expecting that, but if there was federal money before that, then it would be good. Then we might have to do the end of the year report a bit early. I think what will be helpful for us is to give you a preliminary update on Carlisle since Waterdown opened, and then get your feedback so that we know what kind of information you're going to be looking forward to in our final report. And one other issue, and next month we're going to be coming back with some Greensville designs, and we're working with the recreation very closely. One of the things that I think is what we're hoping to do with Greensville is come back to the board with a plan that shows a better partnership between recreation and the library, so that when rec is running programs, part of the library is, in a sense, open to the public. And so that kind of model in a rural area makes sense, and that may in fact feed into how we consider Carlisle. You know, I think the issue for us, or one of the concerns has always been that we have these buildings that are only open 17 hours a week. But if we can look at some models in Greensville that might stretch the impact of our service without increasing operating costs, then that would be a win for the library board and for the community. Okay.
Thank you, Councillor Partridge, and thank you, Paul. One more item on discussion period, and that is the 4th floor opening, which is quickly coming up, and I think Paul has something to tell us about the 4th floor opening.
We're going to be following up with an invitation to the board, and hopefully Mary Ann will be able to give. It's going to be a very busy week that week, but it's June 9th, around 4 o'clock till 6. We're going to have an opening in conjunction with the Learning Annex, so that the initiative that we've talked about. So we're going to be having a full show of the 4th floor, as well as opening it in conjunction with the Learning Annex. So I think it's great that partnership is moving forward. So we're going to send out an invitation. You don't have to go, but I think, you know, we're hoping that we'll have a good representation of the library board there. And if I could just indulge you one quick item as well, which is the following day. We mentioned this last month that we've arranged, so Dr. Ann Kabukian, who's formerly the Information Privacy Commissioner of Ontario, is coming to speak at a library conference that's happening here. It's called Digital Odyssey. We're hosting it. It's an Ontario conference, just one day. What we've worked out with OLA is that we're going to have Dr. Kabukian give her keynote address at 11 o'clock, and then we're going to be followed by having kind of a private lunch here. We're going to be inviting people from the city and others from McMaster, Mohawk, and other community leaders that might be interested. She is really a world renowned in terms of her approach to privacy and access. So I'm going to send that, and if you're interested in attending that luncheon, we'll certainly extend that invitation to the board, entire board. But if you could just let us know if you're going to come, because we're going to try to fill up the seats.
Thank you, Paul. I think we can move on.
I just have a question.
Yes, Vicki.
If we want to come to her lecture or presentation, but we're not part of your conference. Is there a way of coming to it?
Yeah, we've made arrangements so that we're going to have a guest list, and so that the conference, there's going to be some staff attending the whole day, but we'll have a guest list that will be able to come in after break for the 11 o'clock keynote, and then the rest of the conference is going to launch down in Hamilton, wherever her, but then she's going to come, she's offered to come and meet community leaders and talk. So yeah, you don't have to register for the day. If you just we'll send out the note, and if you reply to that, we'll reserve a spot for you.
Thank you, Vicki. And I think we'll move on to the acceptance of the agenda from there. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Lori and Susan. Are there any changes or amendments to be made to the agenda? All in favor of receiving it the way it stands? So be it. Next item is the minutes of the Hamilton Library Board. Can I have a mover and a seconder for that, please? Jennifer and Lori. Any changes to the minutes of last month's meeting, excuse me? No changes. Can I have all in favor then of accepting the minutes? Thank you. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to switch a little bit of the order up here because Mr. Abram is not here yet. He's coming from Toronto, but so what we'll have first is the pop-up library presentation. And I knew that would yes. And so that is Aditya Quinn, is it pronounced it correctly? And Kathleen Shannon, who will give us a presentation on pop-up libraries.
You can use my chair.
So we might just take one of those.
You take whatever you want.
Take whatever you
Thank you.
Is there a clicker? There's a clicker too for you.
Do you want to do that?
So what's
While they're working on that problem, we have a small consent item here, the staff computer renewal. Can I have a mover and a seconder, Susan and Vicki? And anybody want to discuss anything about that particular consent item? No? So, all in favor? Okay, so we pass that.
It was kind of a
We're going to start the cycle.
It's working.
Oh, there we go. And we can move on with the presentation now.
Thank you.
That's what I say.
Is that okay?
Okay, everybody. Hi, I'm Kathleen Shannon, and there's Deja. And we're here to talk a little bit about the pop-up library, which is a really great feel-good topic to talk about. And just to give a little bit of background, because I'm not sure if everybody even, do you have a history of the pop-up library? Okay, great. So last year at our staff day, we asked staff to participate participated in the Dragon's Den, which was them bringing forward ideas. And the pop-up library was the winning idea last year. So we're going to tell you a little bit about what the pop-up library is. We're going to tell you a little bit about how the pop-up library has been going, and show you some fun pictures, and show you some neat stuff that we've gathered and that we're using in the pop-up library project. So what is a pop-up library? It's pretty much exactly what it sounds like. It is a temporary activation of, this is a fancy term for it, the temporary activation of places and spaces for promotion, demonstrations, and sharing of resources. Pop-up events are expected to be spontaneous, vibrant, innovative, unexpected. You might have heard of pop-up shops that come up, you know, in empty storefronts and things. Our thinking is, why can't we go and do similar things, pop up and be the library in those unexpected places? Take the library out to where people are. Certainly we're here when we want us here, but let's go out to people. So it's along the community-led lines that we've been following for the last handful of years as well. I did a lot of outreach I've done a lot of outreach in my roles, and it's always been a little bit frantic. You're trying to pull together things to take out to places, you're carrying awkward packages, your car is packed to the brim with heavy tables, awkward things. We wanted to put together a package that people would want to take out with them on outreach, that they could actually physically carry, that looked attractive, and that would give us some consistency across the system as well. So that you could be taking the stuff out from the Saltfleet Library to an event, or from the Westdale Library, and you're essentially taking out the same branded items. It looks similar, it looks consistent, and it looks great, it looks professional. The team, the project sponsors are Melanie and Lita, which is great. So they've been supporting this right from the start. I'm currently project lead with Dija. Meg, we have to give a shout out to Meg Utangi Matzos, who is also on this team, and then she and I switched jobs, so now I've taken over. But she did a lot of legwork on this project. And then we've got project members from all over the system. So Jeff is from our digital technology department. Julia and Shayla are from the customer service department downstairs. Kat and Sarah are librarians. So Kat is a community librarian and Sarah's a community youth librarian. And so we've got input from a lot of different areas of the library and a lot of different levels. And I think having those voices on the team has provided a really good overview of all the areas that we would want to cover for a project like this. So the goals and outcomes of this project are to certainly increase the usage, the awareness of the library's collections and services, just really increase the customers, if we can get more people to sign up for library cards when we go out, just be out there, to look good. The branding, which we're going to show you, it looks shiny and nice, and we're proud of it, and I think that really shows, and I think that the people who go out and staff these events are really proud of what we put together, and it makes us a happy bunch, and we like talking to people about all these things because of it. So certainly it helps us to proactively respond to the demands that we do get to go out and do events as well. So we can go and take our pop-up things out when somebody says, will you come and do, come and come to the Winona Farmers Market, which is something that we're going to do. Or like we said, we can do these sort of pop-up spontaneous, let's just do something in Jackson Square, which we did unannounced, and then have people come and talk to us there.
Okay, so, from Kathleen's description, you probably see the pop-up library is just a kind of outreach strategy many branches have done for years. So when the project team meet the first time, the question we ask ourselves is, okay, so what can we make a difference? How can we make a difference? What are the missing components from the current activities? Where is the demand? So then we come up some idea. The first thing we think, okay, look, we've been doing this for so many locations, a little bit scattered, but how about let's do some theme-based, focus the energy on a topic each time. So which means you have a core package. We always promote the library program, the services, but at the same time, each time we attach a main theme. So we did the innovative library to promote the digital media lab, and then we can do the summer reading club promotion in the summertime. Other things like, in December, we can go out to promote reading on the go, so before they're going on the winter traveling. So there's so many ideas we think will work with a theme-based location. And then also, we know if we do a system-wide coordination at different regions, we can make sure we spread the effort to different areas. So we will try both indoor and outdoor. So some activities have done, and some were just in arrangement. We are still at the starting phase of the project. The team actually just met in January and pulled up the first 2 pop-up events. So the other thing I think we are very happy is now we have a brand. We have a logo for this activity. Every time we go out, there's going to be the pop-up logo, which is very lovely. We all love it because it's so dynamic. It has this pop-up feeling, and it's colorful, dynamic, and it fits perfectly with our library card. So, and we're going to use it for the, we're going to produce some outdoor banners, and then everyone can take it out. And then we also use for the table from the signage, so when people see it, they know, oh, it's not just from one library branch, it's the pop-up brand. The other thing we've heard as one of the biggest demands, like Kathleen mentioned too, is can we have a package? You know, can we have a grab-and-go package? Then anytime we want to do it, it looks professional and it's easy to build. So that's our goal. So we're looking at a lot, things on the market. I brought something today. You probably can see it's a very mini scale in this version. But what we have this we call QB cube. So you can easily take it off and make a beautiful display wall. We have 2 packages so we can make a different, layout. And we also have some little things like a book easel collapsible, but it's so easy to, save the space. We also have Bluetooth speakers to connect with the iPad. Little things we even think, okay, what about power? If we run out of power, what should we do? So we have like a power bank. And then we also think, when you go to an event, people want something, free stuff. So we bought little things, very unusual from what we usually have, like a pen. So like a flashlight, they can go when they're on camping, bottle opener, they're all laughing about the ideas, bottle opener, what are you going to do with it. But we want to promote both indoor and outdoor living, so I think it's a perfect fit. And then we have things like a little cell phone stand with the screen cleanser, so people can take away. The cell phones become a big thing, and everyone loves it and wants to get one of the little one. So, the last but not least thing, we got to make it fun. Pop-up means fun activities. So, in the past, when we go out, we usually just promote the program. We say, hey, we have this collection. So no, let's do some activities. Let's make sure they see some real stuff from us, some programs we can just run on the spot. So we've been trying to do 3D printer demo. You can see some of the picture we have done at the Jackson Square pop-up event. And we set up poetry creation station. We let them, rather than just take the prize, we gave them a prize wheel, so they touch on the iPad and they're going to win something. So with some fun component, they attract people. We also do library cards, which is actually, the new thing we're trying in those outreach events. We set up VPN, and people now can create a library card when they come to the table. So, oh, really cool, I'm not a member. What should I do? Say, yeah, just get a card today. So it's very successful. We have one mini event just happened 2 weeks ago at Big B Comics, and the staff created 10 cards on spot, just because they want a card because they can get more books from the library. So there's some pictures from the events we have done. This is the setup we did. Because it's closer to the central library, we want to make it more like a case study in case we forget anything. So we set up 2 tables. We have the banner. We set up, we use the Cubex to do the display wall. We also take out the TV, which is the luxury component for this event. But it works really well. We also have the 3D printer as a demo piece. That's again some photos you can see. The kids love them as well. Everyone wants to get a little thing from us. this is the package. So remember, people want a package easy to go. It's hard to make a very small package when you go on this scale. But really, this picture on the left shows everything you see on the table. First picture, except the TV and the 3D printer. So we can easily put things together in 30 minutes and close everything, wrap it up, and all put in this 2 little card. So I bring the card here too, because it's very easy, it's light, and it's it's foldable. As a women-dominated environment, light is very important. So every time we buy things, we try to weigh, okay, how heavy it is, can I handle it by myself? So it works. So this is the next one we did by Terry Berry staff at the Big Comics. So you can see the pop-up scalable. You can do a big event where you can just have one table, set it up, and still look nice. They do have a good visit. 239 people come to the little table, and they will really enjoy it too.
Yeah, so I'm just going to wrap up our presentation. There's time for, certainly if you have any questions, just to kind of give you a sense of what's coming up for the pop-up library. So we're going to, in June, we're going to go to the Stone Creek Winona Farmers Market. It's going to be our first outdoor pop-up event. So we're going to probably discover some things that we need to work on. And outreach outside has always been a bit of a challenge. The signs that fold up that become sails when the winds blow. I've done a lot of puppet shows outside in my work history. The puppet stage, I mean, there's a lot of factors that we probably haven't thought of, but we will once we try outside. We're doing a presentation to update the whole staff at this year's staff day, so we'll get to talk about the year's progress that we've made since last staff day. We're going to review how the pilots went. Then we're going to get the pop-ups out to the branches and just continue piloting, continue making changes, continue adding to the kit. I think there's we've still got a lot of time to grow and a lot of opportunity to assess, and we will be doing that. So, and then next spring we're going to update the plan, and that's our ongoing thing, is to keep doing this and keep updating and just make it better and better. So, are there any questions? Yes.
So not so much a question as just a suggestion. I don't know if you considered Waterdown, but Waterdown has a farmers market, and it goes from the end of May right through until mid-October. And the farmers market provides tents to all the vendors, and they do have a community tent. And it is just packed. It goes from 8 in the morning until 1 o'clock. And I think this would be hugely successful there. Congratulations, I think it's just amazing. But consider the Waterdown Farmers Market, please.
Sure. That's a good suggestion. Thank you.
I was just going to say that I think it's a terrific project. I think you ladies have done a wonderful job. And not to be let down here, I'm from Ancaster. We also have a
Should we do the
Now, my question though was how do you decide where you're going to go? Do you decide and then go, or do you wait for an invitation, or how does this work?
We actually did a lot of research and look at all the events, the farmers market, the street festivals at different regions. And because we're at this starting stage, we want to see how we can do it. Like we say, Jackson Square is our case study. I want to do one outdoor to see how that works, what we're missing, and then we can fix it and keep going and roll out to branches. Eventually next year, we hope to make a model more collaborative with the branch. So then the branch probably can require the pop-up event at their location, and then we can work together on that. Answering the question about which location we decide, now we pick up the location we know have done some outreach already, so they had experience, and then we try to do an add-on and see how that will work. But we still look like we actually talked to Dundas branch saying, do we want to do something? Because I know Dundas closing the current location. Maybe there's a need to go outside to do some branding promotion. We also think when, go to the winter time, we should try some indoor location as well. So that's why Lethbridge Mall become one of the location we're thinking about. We're more proactive rather than just sitting here and wait for people to do the request. At this stage, we are picking the location, but at the same time, we're also accepting, other branches' suggestion. That's why Terry Bear did the big comics. That's their suggestion, and we have this package. That's how they go.
Do you have a pop-up kit yet?
Yeah. What do you mean, like a kit? So
Tent that you can, put up like that, a tent set
a
up?
tent.
Yeah.
So we didn't buy a tent ourselves. HPL has a tent. So when people need it, we're just going to use that tent.
But is it a quick pop-up?
It's a 2 people set up tent.
Huge.
It's not that huge one.
Oh.
There is a new one. Yeah, I use it a lot through that, so I don't. So it can set up by 2 people, ideally 3. Yeah, so that's the tent we can use.
Because there are tents that are much easier that even one person can do. That look like, yeah, so I'm just suggesting that maybe something that you could explore, so you don't have to have possibly 3 people to put up a tent, don't be that onerous.
Yeah, so some location, when we're doing the contact with like farmers markets, they actually have tents and
Yes,
have
some
volunteer
do.
to help set up. At this moment, so we're not considering to buy a tent yet just because we have a tent. We're more thinking, the components is easy, just to grab and
Yeah.
go from here, and then either indoor and outdoor they can use it. But maybe on the go, we can expand the scale. We may have our own tents.
You're not expensive.
I think Karen has something to say.
Oh, I was just going to say, we do go to the Ancaster Farmers Market already in this sort of a non-pop-up version, so sort of a predecessor version. They started that last year. The Ancaster staff regularly were going to the market. And now they'll have a kit, sort of a consistent
Yeah,
kit
that's
to take with them. So just for information. And the other thing is, we did buy the 2 tents last year, compliments of the Friends of the Library.
Oh, yeah.
They all say they're one-man operation. They really aren't.
No.
And we had to go with a little bit more robust so that they're not so flyaway
Yeah,
either.
really.
So it's a bit of a balancing act in terms of those, but we do have 2 new tents purchased last year with our new logo, et cetera.
Oh, okay.
Thank you, and it's exciting. I'm just going to say that first, I think the first I really heard of pop-up was Justin Bieber. I think in Toronto, and I was just Googling. So I heard that on the radio coming into work today. So I just wanted to ask, and I think this is great, and I'm sure you're aware there's many other events that go on throughout the city. And we have the Battle Ramp in June in Stony Creek, the Peach Festival, tons of things. So when you go out to these pop-ups, do you kind of gear to a certain theme at each of these events? Is that what you're trying to do, or to a certain sector, or just trying to get an idea of what you would take that would draw the people to you?
Sure, I think so. We try to have a theme. So like I mentioned initially, we will have a core package. Like each time we go, we always represent a library. So we promote the program, the services. But then on the add-on part is, if, let's say why we did the Digital Media Lab the first time at Jackson Square, because it's just opening the new Digital Media Lab on 4th floor. So we have the DT staff support, and that theme is more all surrounded with the digital media. And then we even promote programs related to digital media. So we sort of train the team, say, okay, now this time, make sure you ask a few questions, right? You promote a few things. So it's all surrounded with the resource and digital media lab. But next time when we go to Stony Creek, will be in the summertime, and then it's a summer reading start time. So we're going to say, okay, now make sure we always mention summer reading. We say kids smell and try to attract them and get the parents. And we will have a outdoor play mat, and we may have a Lego set up. So that's each time we will have a focus.
Excellent.
And
Very
certainly
exciting.
each branch will bring their own expertise as this gets, right now we're working with a core team, and these events that we have upcoming will be staffed by that core team essentially. But like Deisha mentioned, the Big B one was, it was a team member who just said, hey, I'm doing this event, can I take some stuff? And it's worked out that way. And then, so she's representing sort of her branch at that event, but also HPL as an extension of that. So as the branches have more access to these things, as we sort of firm up what a kit looks like, then the branches will provide that sort of localized specialty stuff, the local programs, and be able to highlight the things that would be really particular to that community.
Excellent, very exciting. I hope that you'll give us an update on how things go in a year or whatever. Thank you.
Sure, thank you. Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you, ladies. That was a very, very good presentation. Okay.
Let's take this away.
My choice away? Hey, you're gonna go far.
Just roll it out.
I love the
It goes up too, it's actually really ribbon.
Now we have our next presentation, and it's Mr. Steve Abram, and he's going to tell us all about VOCAL, that wonderful, wonderful acronym VOCAL.
Maybe I'll just introduce him while he's getting set up. So Stephen is a librarian, but he's had a bit of a unique career in that he's spent a lot of his time working in the private sector. For a number of years, he was head of innovation for Cersei Dynex. And in the last, I think about 2 years ago, we took over three. Okay. We've talked before about the Federation of Ontario Public Libraries, and Stephen has taken over leadership of the organization the last couple of years, and so I think we talked about it a little bit last month, but he's going to here to update you on what VOCAL is all about.
Thanks. Hi, I've met quite a few of you at various events. I seem to be out in Hamilton a lot lately. So thanks for inviting me to talk about what we're doing at VOCAL and how we're trying to make life better for public libraries in the province through collaboration and cooperation. So Paul and I talked about what might be of most interest to you. So we do a lot of stuff, and I could go on for a long time, but I cut it back to about 20 slides versus the longer presentation I shared with the management team here, just to focus on some of the key things that we are really important to directors as to the strategic things we're doing to make sure that Ontario public libraries continue to thrive. So let me make sure I'm using this one right. I usually bring my own. Is there a trademark? Oh, okay. So we're collaborative. Our board is half trustees and half CEOs, and me. And our goal from talking to the government is our sector had traditionally talked across purposes, different parts of libraries, large, medium, small, First Nations, Francophone, different communities, often emphasized different things, and it confused the government. So now we try to collaborate to make sure we're all speaking with one voice. So I collaborate with OLA, SULS, OLS North, CULC, and OPLA, OLBA, and try to ensure that we've got our talking points together. I have some fairly strong relationships with the ministers in cabinet and the parliamentary assistants and the ministry staff that matter to our libraries to make sure that we're asking for something, it follows a thread, we stay on point, and that we work well. So we've had some wins. We got the $10 million Ontario Library Capacity Fund stuff. We're working on some other wins. I see my words cut and pasted out of the white papers I create for cabinet in the budget. Libraries were mentioned in it all over the place this time, or the community hubs reports, or the culture strategy. We're finally getting in their focus that we're the community hubs in Ontario. We're Ontario's largest cultural institution by far, And there's a valid return on investment for the provincial government to start increasing the amount of money it invests in us to deliver good social cohesion and good economic development in our province. So we try to stay focused on three things: advocacy and influence. You should just say advocacy. I'm going, it's nice to do advocacy, but let's make sure we're influencing things. If it doesn't move the needle on Michael Coteau's radar or Liz Sandals or Kathleen Wynne, it's not going. Research with power. So instead of some of the research that was done long ago where it was more of a census, saying this is the sort of things we need to comply with AODA, or this is the infrastructure deficit for rebuilding libraries. Now we're looking at this is the key impact of libraries telling stories. So when you're doing a pop-up and you're telling a story to somebody, we know from independent research that we funded that there's a letter grade difference in kids who attend preschool programs in a library by grade 8 versus those who don't attend library programs. So we're having a real impact, and there's an entire professional skill on the process of why we have kids clapping when we're reading the stories, why we have them singing, and how rhythm increases storytelling, and the role we play with kids with reading legs, that we know if we bump up the font for a kid, it increases their comprehension, or we know if we put them on Read Speak and you listen to it while you read it, that we get kids over their grade 4, 5, 6 hump when they're going from learning to read to reading to learning. So we try to create research that actually proves our worth and value and impact and why we're a good investment within the range of government policy. So I'll show you some of the research we've been doing. And then the number one priority of CEOs and trustees the last 2 times we met, when we brought in all 304 library systems and our First Nations libraries into the Roy York, has been, we got to start marketing the library better. We got to collaborate more on that. And that's one of our big projects this year. And we need to say that the local library systems, especially yours, is doing really good at promoting programs, promoting branches, branding well, and creating a presence in their community. The pop-ups is a good example of that, and getting it in front of people. But we need greater strength on marketing our value and impact and surrounding decision makers in our communities as to why we exist. We have the books, but the books are there for a reason. They're for support, learning, school readiness, college readiness, employment readiness, all the things that are important to a well-functioning society. So you'll see that some of this research is based on the kind of work we're doing. Call it VIP, value impact positioning. We think it's key. And so we have some talking points. We've arranged, the last 2 years, we've gone to the legislatures and partnered with OLA and met with 80 people in Queen's Park on one day. Groups of 2 or 3 of us going in and talking to Parliamentary Assistant for Indigenous Affairs, all the ministry staff, all the research officers in the Ministry of Finance and the Minister of Education, the Minister of Culture, all over the place. And we want to make sure that we get our faces, or a small group of our faces, in front of us using the Cialdini frameworks, that they need to see your face 6 times before they trust you. So now we're at the level of they remember my name when I show up. And they remember my board chair's name, and they remember the people who want Paul's been along on these trips. And that way they're willing to listen to us. And we've been pretty smart about researching them ahead of time. So I know that Michael Coteau has a personal interest in teens at risk. He loves everything, but he's got a real strong personal interest in teens at risk. So when I'm telling him a story about the role of libraries, it goes to where his heart is. And that gets us a little farther along. Or I've known Kathleen Wynne since she was chair of the TESB, and my wife and I founded l'Association des Parents Francophiles for Toronto. And when she was chair of the TSB. So I know that she has a special interest in certain types of education and the role we play in education. So when I tell the story and work that way, I can say things like, It's really nice, we appreciate the funding we get from the provincial government, but the schools are doing nothing for homework help. We're doing all the homework help. We're open nights, we're open weekends, and the Ministry of Education has given us diddly squat forever. And that is not sustainable. You can't cut databases and not license databases on a provincial level for the kids to do their homework, and unless you want to actually do that. So our talking points are, if you're not going to fund certain things, you need to do collaborative funding to support public libraries so that there isn't this distance and Swiss cheese between Catholic schools, public schools, private schools, and public libraries in our educational ecosystem. So we have a huge complicated service proposition. We're complex, not complicated. When you're complicated, think we're easy to understand. Just go in and borrow a book, look it up. That's not what we do. The books are there for a reason. They're there for learning. They're there for social engagement. They're there to create. They're there for storing our culture. There's so many reasons they're there. But we need to look at the return on investment that people are looking for. We need to have proofs of that. So we're trying to build the proofs for a strong economic development. That you revitalize the Jackson's-Brook area in downtown Hamilton by having a fabulous library here to bring people back into the downtown. And it'll revitalize the mall, it'll revitalize the square, it'll connect it to the art gallery in Gore Park. And suddenly you start to see Silicon Valley kind of people renting brick-faced lofts in downtown Hamilton. And that's part of having anchor tenants like the library. So we tell that story that we have, they'll give a subsidy to a Walmart when we have better economic development going 5 years. Employment support we don't even have to argue about anymore. Welcoming new Canadians is huge. I'm sure you're doing it. I know Toronto Public Library has a massive program for dealing with refugees. My wife and I are sponsoring a family in the next few months. We raised $70,000 and I collected all the programs that are at Toronto Public Library for welcoming refugees, children, working them through their stuff. Early literacy development is our core spot, but we talk about it as literacy development, school readiness, and college readiness in early years. We use the language of the provincial government because then you align it with the funding strategies. Whereas when you call it reading to kids, that's what it is, but it has a much bigger impact. Formal education. So we know the province is ordering the colleges to focus on their 6 main programs. So Mohawk College had to choose its 6 main programs that it was going to be excellent at. And they're ordering them over the next few years to go 20 to 50% e-learning in all the colleges so that they can support the distance education models of people outside of the major centers. 70% of the people right now who use distance education are single moms, and they use the computers at the library to access this stuff, and they use the resources of the library to get their homework done. And that's the kind of connections we need to make to what formal education is converting to and how the library is going to work that way. We serve the whole community equitably. Lord knows we serve everybody. Affordable access to government services and e-government. As our government goes to e-government, we know from the local surveys, 25% of Ontarians don't have access to the internet at home or work. So what are you going to do with the 25% who are left behind? And so we have a valid new number that's fresh that tells us exactly where they are and who they are and what's important. Questions deserve quality answers. The Google works for some stuff, but a quality answer moves things a little better. I'd rather you use the recipe that we came in one of our books than one that might be from anywhere in the world online. We support cultural vitality. And this is part of the stuff where you've got an art gallery, but Paul gave me a wonderful tour of the recording studio and the maker space and the art gallery and stuff like that. We are the entry level. You got to be sort of halfway famous to go into the art gallery of Hamilton or the AGO. Artists start somewhere else. Putting your art up in a restaurant or a library is a way to start to enter the largest employment space in Ontario, which is cultural stuff. So learning how to sing, how to dance, how to use the resources here. And we're recognizing valued leisure activities. That's really good. We don't need to reinforce that. We need to reinforce our value proposition on our side. If anybody doesn't know we have books, we got a bigger problem. So we got this complicated value proposition, and we want to focus on the research. We're pretty big. Pretty nearly everybody is a member in one way or another. We cooperate with all the other bodies. I meet with them monthly, we meet in person quarterly, and we plan everything together and we divide up the work. The agencies like SOLS and OLS North are legally not allowed to lobby. OLA and FOPL are, so I can be a lobbyist and represent the views. OLA is focused on First Nations and school issues, focused on the public library issues. That's how we divided up the work. So there's our goals. So we need to know our numbers. So 2 years ago I went to the provincial government and they said, we're going to be all in favor of open access and open data. And so they started running some hearings, so I went and testified before them and said, prove it. I'm looking at the open data website, and you're telling me that you have open data on what the most popular baby names are in Ontario. That's a lot of fun, and will support some high school projects for using data. That's nice. But why isn't the public library data open? Why is it locked into PDFs for every year? So there's 17 PDFs for every year, and it's locked up data. If I want to do analysis on it, I've got to type it all in. So bless the little cotton socks, they made it open at our request. And so we hired Dr. Robert Molyneux, who is the top statistician in libraries in the world. He's touched nearly every data set for every library at IMLS, all over the US, everywhere. And had him analyze it for us. We ran statistical forums and symposia at U of T for the focal members, and started looking at what were the 10 best measures. So you could always rank who, using the data from the ministry, who's the highest circulating library in, well actually in the world, but in Canada or in Ontario, it's TPL. That's lovely. But TPL is not the highest circulating library per capita or per cardholder. That's a real measure. That's what we want to know. And so we've taken all the data from 1996, it's a little wobbly data there, so we published it from 2001, and in the next month we'll be publishing it for 2014. And we now know all the trends. So we know the trends are that usage is going up. We know that with the exception of 1 or 2 library systems in Ontario, usage is not going up at the rate of population growth. So now we're taking that number and saying, if you're not growing at the rate of population growth, and I talked to the CDOs and my trustees about this, if you're hitting the problem that Macy's and the Bay and companies that aren't attracting the younger population, the Bay's trying hard and doing okay at it, but Macy's and JCPenney and Sears are going down the tank right now because their population is aging out. Same thing as newspapers, right? Print newspapers, the average reader is now 63 years old. Not a sustainable model, because we're not birthing new 63-year-olds. We need to get the younger folks in. And so remember that stat when we get to the next level, because that's tied to our research. So we analyze the data, we now have charts, we know we're growing, but we're able to talk very confidently about how fast we're growing and how much we're growing. You know, we've doubled library programs in this province in 5 years. Like, the libraries are doing amazing jobs of increasing the programs and the attachment to their community needs. We know that we've doubled the use of the library in 7 years. We got to count virtual visits, digital visits, and in-person visits. In-person visits has gone up a little bit, plateaued a bit the last 2 years, but the virtual visits exceeds. Now your virtual visits in a library exceed your in-person visits. So that talks to what we need for funding and technology, what we need for making the virtual branch staffed properly and offering virtual programming. So libraries are putting in lynda.com to put technology courses in, or putting in online storytelling where you can listen to it as well if you can't make it to the library. So we published all that for the members, and now we're about to publish the database to the members for their own strategic planning needs. So as soon as it's up to date with 2014, for the first time in 20 years, the ministry data will be coming. They can do their own analysis, play with it themselves, or ask me to do it for some of our smaller libraries. The exciting thing we did in 2015, last year, was have MarketPro Canada do a full-scale public opinion poll for all of Ontario. Statistically valid, delivered as computer-assisted telephone interviewing, and we, for the first time, did an online poll as well, which generated different data. We did it in 2000, 2005, 2010. We adjusted the questions this year, kept all the old ones, but added questions in 3 areas. One was to oversample on First Nations, New Canadians, and Francophones, so that they're small populations, so we had to oversample on it so we could actually analyze it. And that's why we chose a retail person, a retail firm, not a political firm. Because the political polling is done on citizens because you only want people who can vote. And that's not who we serve in libraries. There's a whole lot of people who we value that are Ontario residents who aren't citizens yet. And we validated the demographics, and we discovered a bunch of really, really interesting things. So we know that if you're over 50, you love us. Just love us to death. If you're between 18 and 40, there's been a statistically significant softening in their value proposition for the library. We know we were able to surmise from some post-interviewing we did what's causing that. So if you delay childbirth, which is really common now until your mid-30s, that fundamentally shifts things. You've got an established career probably. We know that when I went to university, and I'm sort of old, just sort of old, only 17% of people went on to post-high school education. Now 70% go on to post-high school education. So they're a well-educated, well-established group of people who, when they have their kid, they're established. They're making an income. They're home for up to a year. And then they mostly move back into the workforce. Not always, but mostly. And so that disrupts what happened in libraries where we got the moms back in their 20s when they were poor, not to income, and had to get their kids into activities. Now, they're largely to income and aren't coming back into the library unless we market to them better and adapt to them better. Hence pop-ups and ways to get out into the community so that we don't have to depend on people discovering us again when they start families, or dealing with populations of people who are post-family or not family-oriented or singles. The nuclear family is the 4th most popular lifestyle, for lack of a better term, in Canada. So that's, how do we deal with singles and couples and there's another one. Anyway, we've got a lot of data on public perceptions. And we added the Pew Internet questions to this. So what's the #1 most requested thing that over 75% of Ontarians want in their public library? Makerspaces. That surprised us. Came up right on top. There isn't a library that doesn't have internet. That's last decade's news. That was the news from the last century. That's just an expectation. I don't ask if Starbucks has Wi-Fi. I just know it does. I don't ask if the library has Wi-Fi. It's what are you doing with the Wi-Fi? Are you showing me how to access Thingiverse so I can print something really cool? Are you showing me how to do important things? Are you laying down? Are you knowing that your makerspace has the opportunity to drag in? And this is where it was interesting, the male versus female. The males wanted it even more than the females, although both wanted it well above. But what we find on makerspaces is dads and kids start coming in, not just moms and kids, which is the normal model for Story Hour. So how do we serve whole communities? And that's an exciting opportunity for us. Digital production studios, digital innovation, podcasting studios, all near the top of the list. Everything that they thought they wanted, there was like a couple at the bottom that weren't that exciting to them, but they might not have understood what it was. This is what leadership is about, really. So we have the research now that shows us a path that we can strongly say that a makerspace, a digital innovation hub are not frills. And here's how it fits with you, Minister of Education, in your agenda to get more girls into technical education. Your agenda to deal with arts and culture, STEAM, STEM, all these keywords, the role the library plays on pulling all those together. We can't speak with confidence unless we say to them, the public says they want it, the librarians have already demonstrated they're doing a rock solid job of delivering it and learning really fast. It's the one place in the community where you have open access for anyone in the community, talented people being there, books to show you how to do it, and the ability to experience this new technology. So my daughter does over 1,000 3D prints a day. She's a jewelry designer, has 2 degrees in it, and when we look at the employment opportunities and the disruption that's going to have, she just prints row on row on row. Well, she has a team of people print her stuff for it, but she just does non-stop jewelry design and model it up. And nearly all jewelry is 3D printed. So that's another piece of research that is a good 1.5 inches thick and full of insights about which technologies, which cultures, which age demographics, which parts of Ontario. They love their libraries more in southwestern Ontario. You gotta decide which one you want to be. You're sort of on the bridge. Then we started focusing on board effectiveness. And we partnered with OLA and OLBA on a Culture Development Fund grant and got it. And it's a grant where we're committed to showing other cultural sectors like local history societies, Parks and Rec, archaeological groups, to say this is how your independent boards can be effective. You've got a very sophisticated high-level board. But we've put in place 5 or 6 online learning modules that have been rolling out based on the board cycle so that we can bring new board members on side quicker, get an overview of how strategic planning works, how to write a legacy document at the end of your term, stuff like that. And we've communicated it in the OLA boot camps that we co-planned with OLA, and we've got them in the LearnHQ infrastructure. So as part of the library's 2020 project, we had 4 priorities. One of them was to build capacity in Ontario. So now we have a full-scale learning management system that has been acquired for every trustee, every librarian, every clerk and technician, every school helper, massively and free, with thousands of courses in it. And we've tied it to performance management, performance reviews, professional development management, and the competencies that have been customized to Ontario about the competencies we need to look at and where you evaluate someone who needs to improve 2 competencies. Each of those courses will be tagged with, here's a course you can take if you need better computer skills, if you need better human relation skills, if you need better customer management skills. Then we did a library branding study. We pulled every single website and social media and social networking account of every single library system in Ontario. So we inventoried them, had a census of them, and then shared it with the members. We collected every single tagline for every single library in Ontario and put it in a database and built word clouds on it and did analysis on it. The good news is that libraries did not have library or books as the biggest word in what they wanted to do. The words that were showing up was inspire, educate, global, community. Like, we're much farther along than I would have guessed when we looked at how we're positioning ourselves with our communities. Now, how do we build that to community? So we're using that to inform our marketing campaign that I was with my consultant on that on the drive out here, so we had an extra hour of traffic time to talk about how to market libraries. From that, we've done research on CAOs in municipalities about where they think libraries are weak and strong. They think we do really good with kids, we do good with moms. They think we're weak on, I'm not saying this about your library, I'm just saying what the CAOs say, is CAOs believe we're not as tied to the business needs of the community as we should be, which which is an opportunity for us, and how does FOPO work on building infrastructure and training there, and that we don't play as well with other members of the community as we should. So things like Parks and Rec and community centers and stuff like that. I know you guys are more sophisticated. After that, we looked at identifying who needed to be targeted, and then how did we need to string all this together. So in 20 communities all across Ontario in the last month, we have done person on the street interviews to test 10 potential taglines and communicate what it is about your library you want people to think about, and how do we want it to engage in the conversation. So we tested it with 18 to 40-year-olds. We wanted to know how they felt about it, not how I reacted to it. So we got good data from our external consultants. We tested it in Northern Ontario, all across the Golden Horseshoe, and in Southwestern and Eastern Ontario. So we've got the data now. We've got a tagline chosen. We're building a branding guide to help libraries use this for the value and impact positioning. The good effect is we think it's pretty exciting, and we think it's tied to the market we need to address based on the research we got from our public opinion poll, what we're seeing happening to circulation and website use, and what we're seeing our municipal partners and province talking to as we see the social envelope getting care and attention that had been declining federally and provincially for a few years. So we get legal. Okay, we find it's very convenient to when everybody needs to know about the Canadian spam legislation or cyberbullying or the access copyright renewal. You don't want to spend $5,000 on a legal opinion or tie up your municipal lawyer. We just go out and get one with lawyers, a stable of lawyers we have that we know are library literate and literate in that stuff. So it's a very effective way to get things done. We've been increasing our access to government. So I wrote and processed through the various partners we have our pre-budget consultation documents, and attended the lockup and various meetings on that to make sure they understood what we were talking about. This fall, we're going to arrive earlier in the cycle over the August-September period to do individual meetings with who we think needs to get our agenda into the thing to align with what they want to do. Part of it's based on what's happening with the culture strategy that's out for comment now. We presented our culture comments, and we aligned it with TPL's and various other libraries and OLA's response. So we're all hitting on the same message with different words, so we'll be at the table again. We did have the president of OLA identified and appointed to the Culture Strategy Task Force at the cabinet level. This is something new. We don't normally get someone from our sector on cabinet level important task forces that are economically essential. The Community Hubs Task Force, same thing. I've been to 5 different consultations on that, of us as community hubs, and how do we get put on the list to get disused school buildings? How do we get put on the list? Like, our recommendation is hold the insurance and the security costs for our schools at night and on weekends and give us access to them. They're using the insurance excuse to have public facilities not maximize further asset value. So if we need a gymnasium or we needed 3 classrooms and we want to run a fair, can we get 4 classrooms in a gymnasium and use that space on a Saturday? We're seeing way too many schools underused that we could do some pretty cool stuff with. We had the library days at Queen's Park. We had 10 ministries in, 3 people from each ministry to walk them through how libraries could partner with them. So we did presentations, they did presentations, we created videos for them. And then a number of us meet regularly with the staff to present the research to them. We gave them the reports on the culture strategy, on the market probe poll, on the library numbers, and they're quoting those numbers nonstop now in the beginning of the policy documents. We can see there will be a funding framework coming from this, in culture in particular, in the next budget. So since we are the largest cultural institution, and they know that, then we should get part of that funding. And then we're spending a lot of time on infrastructure and talking to eligibility for grants. So instead of saying that economic stuff comes from roads and sewers, we're in the 21st century. Economic radioactivity comes from making libraries eligible for infrastructure grants and land grants and ability to get unused provincial lots that our libraries weren't on the list. So we've gotten them to agree to put in there that libraries will now be on the list for government land and government land parcels that comes up for sale in communities where they were holding it too long or didn't know that they weren't going to build something there. That kind of stuff should generate the ability for us to create better partnerships. So that if we see a piece of land come up and a community center is going on it or a rec facility, and we want to put a library there, we know that that model works really well and can work well for different communities. So our goal is to complete the analysis this year and give that to every library for their strategic planning purposes, promote the key findings of what's in the public opinion poll, and what it says about us, that libraries are vital, valid, important things. I use those two things for the regional vitality reports. So in Niagara region and Waterloo, we've seen those vitality reports come out of what's happening in a community and how it's healthy and socioeconomically driven, and libraries were never mentioned. So now that we're into the second round of those, we're getting libraries into those reports based on these data. So we can talk about the role we play in community vitality as community hubs. We're putting the public library voice into the various councils, and we've already made calls around the senior social isolation and the education task forces that are going on right now. And then we're following through on the Libraries 2025 Summit. We've got the draft document where it says, this is what we said we were going to achieve in 2020. Here's what we achieved. This is what we say we want in 2025. This is what we've started doing, and this is what we dream about later on. 2020 generated $18 million in additional funding for libraries in Ontario. So we're crafting our ask for the next round of hopefully $25 million to puzzle things in that moves us along that way. And so we've gotten the ramp, all of our studies and stuff like that, and the white papers out. We've got a government relations strategy about what we want to focus on. It's too long, I know, but there's things there around the CRTC and broadband that we've got to get onto the CRTC's radar for library access to T3 connections. Many of us are still on T1, and it's just not strong enough for the stuff we're putting in. First Nations is another special issue that we deal with if anybody wants to talk about. I spent yesterday in Sault Ste. Marie dealing with Attawapiskat and infrastructure needs of the reserves that don't have libraries and don't have schools that go beyond Great Canyon. There's lots of stuff in it. And so what we're asking for you tonight is to consider over the next while, next month hopefully, choose to be part of the solution. Join Focal so that your voice is there. The most exciting thing we're doing in 2016 and 2017 is we're investing $100,000 from our strategic investment fund in building a massive dashboard for all of Ontario. So if you know, if you remember when I was talking about we did a census of all the websites and social media, we can now put it on a dashboard and see everything that's happening on stories that are being shared by libraries and access that. Then with permission from members as they permission us in, we're hiring 3 or 4 journalists to build an open media desk to write stories, create video, build infographics, to populate all of Ontario with positive stories about libraries' value and impact. It's an affordable strategy. It's way cheaper than buying a full-page ad in the Toronto Star for $18,000 with a Hamilton spec. It's cheaper than printing things, but we're going to give the tools for people to use that within their own printing systems. But we want to have this dashboard that tells us that story went viral, what made it go viral. That video, our policy will be that we're having end users, members of the library, tell their story, be filmed in less than a minute, and send it out there saying, I learned to read at the library and now I have a career, or I got a job, or I found out I really wanted to be an engineer and I applied to do my degree at Mohawk or McMaster. So we think it's pretty exciting, and we think that getting our face out there in a modern 21st century kind of way with research-driven proofs. So instead of just like people can accuse us of talking through our hat, we can say, no, here's the data. So we spent 2 years under the board's leadership with my help, building the proofs, getting the data, and being prepared to launch this big campaign to make sure that we give power and truth to the provincial and federal governments, and that we can enable boards and management teams at libraries to have the data they need to go to their own city councils. Our policy isn't to go to local councils, that's your job, but we can certainly provide the data and the regional data and the proofs that give you some meat on the bones to say this is that's important. And I'll breathe in now. I got a little nervous arriving late, so I really apologize for that. I have never taken 2.5 hours to get out. The road is never that bad. Any questions?
Any questions?
Thank you for the presentation. It certainly changed, Hopeful has changed quite a bit since the last time we had a presentation from the organization. So I'm interested in the data collection and how you see that continuing in the future. It sounds like you have a snapshot in time, collected it over the last couple of years. How do you intend to keep that current and keep that voice and that conversation with governments, updating and changing as the landscape changes? How will you fund that research, and how will you keep that going?
That's a good point. The provincial government is mandated to collect the data. They weren't mandated to share it. So we made them share it, and they're putting it on open data, so I can just download it. Only costs us, using the member money on a shared basis, $5,000 to hoover in the data into our database. So it's not a sustainability issue on that. Tied to that, though, is are we collecting the right data? So I've met with Rod and Adam at the ministry every year prior to them releasing these surveys. And so I inform them on things that need to be there. So the survey coming out this year has new questions in it. Last year, they used to say, do you offer programs? 3 years ago, they said, do you offer programs? How many do you offer? Last year, I went through it and said, we need to know the difference between a teens program, a seniors program, a children's program. Like, it's just not good enough data for us to make management decisions on. So now the libraries are, when they see it the first time, it takes about 3 years for it to wobble in. But we wanted to make sure that libraries were aware that we wanted to collect that, and now they're upgrading their collection techniques, because it's the programs where we shine. Like, you see that the amount of research and passion that went into that pop-up program, and that's just one of thousands in this library. Everything from a puzzle table downstairs to coloring programs to stories, it's just amazing. So, but we need to collect that and say, here's the programs we're going to offer that help girls and boys know that they can do engineering and robotics. And McMaster has one of the top programs in the world there. And I'm working with the guy who did the Hitchcock. And it's a cool thing. Even if Americans tried to kill it. And so we're aimed at sustainability. Our data collection on what's happening with the virality of stories is that we're spending 2 years to goose the program and get it out, but the goal at the end of 2 years is to have it sustainable and self-managed by our members. That they're able to see the models and copy them and know what works, so we can give them the best practices, and then we can scale it back to be a smaller model based on maybe critical issues. So if we're looking at, there's an opportunity in 2018, then we'll focus on that, and then everybody else will know how to do the rest of it. But I always aim it at sustainability. The important thing, though, is to make sure we're collecting the right data. And then when I harvest the data out, we have control over what analysis we want to do. The ministry could always do the analysis and look at what's going on. Then it would give us a number saying X. And we could never look under the numbers to see, is that what it's really saying? Or is that what you were told to find a proof for? I'm not saying they did that, but I don't trust it. So I'd rather be able to manipulate the data ourselves. Then I'd rather have the data given, I keep a core copy, but give it to somebody with the, right now we're looking at the harvesting of the database and building a guide to it and definitions of each field so that people can analyze it themselves or insert their own data points that they want to compare to.
Correct me if I'm wrong, my understanding was you said you had 5-year goals for funding, government funding.
That's one of the goals. And, yeah.
I'm a money person.
Yep.
You had 5-year goals, and I believe, what was it for 2020, it was $18 million or $15
No,
million?
18 million was what we got for 2020.
Okay.
And we got it 7 years ago.
Okay. Oh,
And we spent it over 7 years. Because we did the 2020 summit to craft what goals we were going to achieve. Because money is only a measurement of someone financing what you want to achieve.
well, what did we use that money for, these various?
No, none of that.
None of that?
We built Learn HQ. We started the annual Institute of the Library's Place that OLA took on as their project. We built communities of practice for core teams of people across the province. It's built into Learn HQ. It just hasn't been launched yet. And there's a fourth one, the branding.
Does any of it trickle down to the actual library boards that are, and you know, say Hamilton, obviously it's going to be prorated depending on the size of the boards, but so 500,000 at least trickles down to Hamilton. Does that ever come to this board and is, you know, this is your piece
Comes to your
of the funding?
CEO, I believe. And there's some stuff that's done on a application basis.
So what is
Some stuff that's done on the public library operating grant model, which needs review and consultation. If you're a fast-growing city, they're using 1996 population numbers. So we're hoping that the opportunity of 2 years from now having the long-form census back, for us as social institutions, that gives us an opportunity to have a consultative process on fairness within the public library operating grant and dealing with the 50% cut to the grant that was made in 1996, and it hasn't gone up a penny since then.
Well, then, so
Can
of
I
this,
answer that?
Yeah.
Because I actually think we, to a certain extent, we've already benefited. So we get and you're right, the capacity building grant was cut in around 1995, 1996, and so we get around $1 million. But the equipment, a lot of the equipment downstairs in the fourth floor was from the Ontario Capacity Building Grant. And so the provincial government has been giving us additional grant money every year to buy different things. So in this case, equipment. So, you know, I whether there's a direct correlation, I certainly could say that Opal
We
has,
consulted on them.
yeah, it sort of helped lay the groundwork for more investment. You know, I think the key is here, the reality in Ontario, and we're in better shape because we're a large municipality that has resources. But the reality is that the provincial government doesn't really support public libraries that much.
To the extent they should.
To the extent they should. And so by working with other libraries, not only are we having a more research-based case to make our case for local funding, but also puts us in a position where we could get more provincial funding. And to me, that's critical. You know, the province has been underinvesting and they're making improvements, but if we can work together with other libraries to make the case, why are you making the local taxpayer support the public library when we're supporting all these initiatives that meet provincial government social and economic goals?
okay, next question, so that those funds that we got for those various pieces of equipment and whatever not that we used it for, is that part of your, that is part of that 18 million that you're talking about?
No, that was an additional $10 million that we lobbied for.
Okay, but it was.
Let me explain the framework, because the public library operating grant is the only no strings attached grant left in the provincial government, and they're afraid to touch it for libraries. They will give new money for accountable dollars, and all this is post-natural gas plant disasters. So every dollar you get now, you have to write a report on, you have to say what it was spent on, there's all sorts of new models on it. Libraries, of course, are freaking ethical and do everything really well, and they fill out their reports. But when they give new money now, they're giving it in little buckets. So we have a huge reporting requirement on the Culture Development Fund grant, on the Ontario Libraries Capacity Fund grant, on the grants we got for the 18 million that are distributed through SOLs using the operating formula. And that's, or invested in for the whole province as a whole. So we have to divide up the underlying grant, the accountable grants, and the additional funding that they push out every once in a while. So last year we got $5,000 in additional funding for the 40 reserve libraries in Ontario because they were suffering. And we got some more
And
money.
this is through the auspices of Focal.
Yeah.
But was the application made by you, or was the application made by, the funds made by the individual libraries?
We create the opportunity for the libraries to apply for them,
Okay.
or it's dropped down on the model, depending on what they want to do. So it depends on timing. I'm not saying this happened, but before the last election, they dropped down new money into every library system on the model. After the election, the Ontario Libraries Capacity Fund went through the legislature because it didn't make it through before they prorogued, and it came out, and then they had to apply for it.
See, and if I could just add that I think the difference from us not participating is likely, I don't see the provincial government excluding the Hamilton Public Library from additional money that they're giving out to other communities. But in a sense, we're relying on an effort that we're not participating in. I think, but you know, so we could benefit things like the OLA boot camp that a few people went to. You know, that's certainly in partnership. I think the issue, though, is that there's a lot of research reports and comparison information that we don't have access to because we're not part of POPL. And some of that information around, like the thing that we do, well, we're doing a better and better job of marketing, but that kind of research into understanding customer behaviors and figuring out how to reach those markets, you know, we could, and we've looked at like the Environics and pieces like that, and that would, like, to do that would cost more than joining, way more than for us to join Focal.
On one activity.
You know, one activity. So it's kind of like, basically there's an understanding that there's similarities between other communities. I certainly think the more we can make a local case for data for the council that's in Ontario, and we have Canada-based information, which is good. We do have some Ontario-based information. It's published, but it's some of the analysis that we could probably benefit from.
Any other questions, either Paul or Stephen?
The last thing sort of related to your question was what's on the horizon
Yeah.
that HPL would want to be at the table on. The government is sending up trial balloons on adding accountability to the public library operating grant and dealing with lower or higher levels of accreditation. And there is an accreditation standard that you over-exceed, but it would, like, I'm personally against a mandatory accreditation for large urbans because you're freaking awesome already. And if you set a minimum standard, it allows municipalities to say, go to the bottom. So we think that's coming. We also think that they're setting up trial balloons on looking at reviewing the public library operating grant, which could go south, could go north, we don't know. But OLA and Focal have put it in our documents that we would welcome a consultation process on the public library operating grant focused on fairness and focused on small, rural, and remote areas, which you have a lot in your basin, that it recognizes the difference between the flexibility a large urban system has, even though your dollars spent per cardholder are lower than some of the other ones. And which is a nice number to know now, that the urbans don't spend as much per cardholder as the small ones do. We also look at what's the top-up needed in a remote or rural community so that we don't make other Ontarians suffer. So I want them to raise the grant, yes, but if they're going to raise it, maybe it needs to be more strategically targeted at innovation in large urbans and good old operating stuff in the small, rural, remote, and First Nations libraries. So we're building the talking points for that now, and if you're at the table, you can help.
Can I just suggest something? Sure. That I think we've taken longer than we
Yeah,
planned, but I think this was very useful information, so thank you. The thought that Marion and I, when we talked about the agenda review, was we bring a report to this for next month. So could I suggest that if anyone has any questions or things that they want included in the report, to email the chair and myself. Otherwise, we'll be preparing a report for next month's meeting. But if you have any questions, you want to make sure we cover concerns.
I only brought 2 copies. But I'll email a copy to,
Okay.
Paul. Thank you for listening to me. It's been a pleasure.
Very informative. Okay, are we ready now? We should move forward. Okay, can I have a mover? We're down to business arising, we did the consent items. Item, business arising, upcoming and outstanding agenda items. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Lori and Nikki. And now, Paul, do you want to expound on this issue?
Just very briefly, this was a follow-up from our last meeting. The intention is to continue this, and I think it will clarify. So if there's anything that board members think we're missing from this, please let us know. And the other thing I think is good about this is that if a board member suggests something, and we need to vote on whether it should be happen sooner or later, or the priority, it provides an orderly way of doing that. So we try to catch everything, and our intention is every month as we update this, we're going to be removing items that have been addressed. And I guess the other thing I'd say is that if you could look a month on the agenda, every month we review the agenda with the board chair. So those might need to be adjusted, and certainly we'd be happy to give any explanation if you wonder why something was adjusted. And I think we try to do that. So if there's any questions, let me know.
Any questions there? All in favor to receive? Thank you. The next one is our formal report on start the cycle from Karen, and can I have a mover and a seconder, please? John and Jennifer? Karen?
Yeah, I was asked to bring this final debrief for you. It was a year ago, pretty much this meeting, that the project was approved in principle, and then we started it, as you know, at the end of June. So we did the pilot last year. I think we always viewed it as a modest success and attributed some of the lower numbers to the late start and the fact that we weren't able to get it going during the school year, which would have helped to promote it, particularly in the Tea Garden and Red Hill areas. That being said, it generated so much interest across many organizations. And so the happy news is that while we struggled with maybe some of the logistics pieces, it was received very well in conversations with public health and city recreation, who really showed a strong interest in sort of transitioning the program to rec, which we have done. So it is going to launch on June 9th on the mountain at Huntington and Estrella McNutt, isn't it? No, sorry, Westmount. So yeah, I'm thinking of a different project. Westmount, and this is particularly because we receive funding from the Healthy Kids Community Challenge, which is focused on the mountain. So we're looking forward to seeing how it goes with rec. One of the things we're very pleased about is that it is a more fully integrated program. So, even just in early discussions, they have 1,000 water bottles to attach to bikes. They've just got a lot of other things that are well aligned Whereas for us, it was a little bit of a departure. We recognized a need in the community, and certainly where we don't want to close the door on opportunities or ideas that are a little bit out of the box, because that's how we learn as well. And it was a really unique way to engage with the kids. We had some great anecdotal stories, particularly about kids engaging with library staff. So I'm satisfied that we gave it a good shot. The logistics were challenging. Could we have smoothed some of that out? I'm confident we could, but I actually think this is the better outcome going forward. So we've been asked to just sort of put together crunch the final numbers, and as I say, it will transition. It's underway now. June 9th is their launch. I expect good things at those two recreation centers. And one thing, just to get back to the reason we picked Barton and Red Hill, was because we'd actually identified those neighborhoods as perhaps having more barriers for kids in terms of accessing bikes. So we have encouraged rec, if possible, to extend the program back down to the lower city, thinking particularly of the Pinky Lewis Rec Center near Barton. Because of the particular funding model they're working with, that's not happening on this cycle. But if it is indeed successful, they know that there would be interest there as well. So, any questions about that?
No questions? Thank you, Karen, that's a very good report, thank you. All in favor to receive this report? Thank you. The next item is a report from Paul on the in-camera process. Now, I just do want to make comments before Paul starts. We will have a fuller discussion on this particular issue, likely in September, possibly October, when George is back, because George has some very, very strong points, some strong viewpoints on this, and it's only fair that he has an opportunity to voice them. So we will have a fuller discussion on this sometime later in the year. Thank you. Paul?
Is there a mover and a second?
Oh, yeah, sorry. Thank you, Paul. Vicki and Lori.
Yeah, and I just think there's some clear rules about in-camera based on the Public Library Act, Municipal Act. They're pretty consistent, and so I think it's important that as the board gets ready for that discussion, that we review all the appropriate legislation. And I guess one thing that we've always done, and I've been looking at the numbers since 2002, and there is not an increase in us going in camera. There's been a little bit more recently during the years leading to the CEO recruitment, and there's been more, we're now doing a CEO performance appraisal process that didn't really exist except in a couple of exceptions in previous years. But we have a tradition of being limited the number of times we go on camera. And so I also think that when you look at the legislation, there are certain cases where we do have a legal responsibility to go on camera. So I think that discussion, if people could review that and if they have any questions, and we'll bring this discussion back.
I think it's oh, sorry, go ahead. Claire?
Okay. This is very much just a logistical question of the document. There were a few sections that were highlighted, but there was no text underneath it, and I opened it in a few different formats. On page 5 of 7, for example, in the digital version, and I just was missing some context, so purely just to look at that, making sure you see what I was
Okay, you know what, and
it just
we can reissue that without the highlighting, and the thing was, it
it's
actually...
helpful to have that.
Okay, well, oh, you know what, actually, I see what you're talking about, I have the same thing.
It looks like a CSIS stuff.
Okay, we'll double check it, maybe, can I suggest, Claire, we can pull it, you know what may have happened, there may not be anything there.
No, there is.
There is, okay.
I think it depends on how you opened it.
We'll follow up, thank you for bringing that to our attention.
Thank you.
I think those sections have to be discussed in camera. All in favor? The next topic, the next is 5.4, construction renovations, lessons learned. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Claire and Jennifer, and I think Paul wants to start on this one.
Sure, and we've spent some time trying to look at the lessons learned. I think specifically there's been questions related to the Waterdown project that have prompted these. But we also know the board last month just approved our doing sliding doors downstairs. So I think what we tried to do is look at Waterdown and then also look at recent projects in general. And we did meet with the city project managers, we've met internally, I know Karen's been very involved, and we've tried to look at what has worked and what's been missing. And the recommendation we really have is that we want the board to review this for feedback, and then the intention is that we're going to have an updated facilities master plan brought back to the library board in the fall. And if I could just comment on why the timing of that. As you know, our manager of finance and facilities, Robin, left the organization for another job. So did Julianne. So we haven't had that kind of facilities expertise in-house, and so we're asking that we delay that really till the fall, so that we have some time. But that's the goal. So what our intention is, where appropriate, we'll be looking at the facilities master plan and putting these issues back in for the board then to review, refine, and hopefully approve. So I'll open up to questions.
Any questions at all? Or a more fulsome discussion again later? No questions. Okay, so shall we, all in favor?
There
Doug?
will be more of a deep dive on Waterdown.
See, and I think the thing is, and that's where, if we're going to discuss specific things about the contract or the contractors, we would need to go into camera for that because of litigation. I do think, though, that if you look at, or potential litigation, that if you look at these, I think there's a lot of lessons learned on Waterdown that we've tried to elicit in here, although they're not general to Waterdown. We do pose there's some things that we can control, some things that we can't. The whole question of, I think it's fair to argue that an untested design creates a certain element of project risk and delays that can contribute. So I think, from our standpoint, we will do a final debrief on Waterdown when the project closes, but that's not going to happen for some time. I think we're anxious to take what lessons we've learned and then work with the board on ways that we can make adjustments to our process to move forward. That was our intention.
If I just may, I think to Paul, many of the lessons we learned can be applied as a general basis. They don't have anything to do, they don't necessarily have to have something to do with Waterdown. They are just lessons that have come up over the various projects that we've undertaken, and Waterdown happens to be the most recent and biggest one. But it's not complete, so it's not final. So any other comments or questions? Jennifer?
Well, and I'd say it's problems and it's successes.
Yes.
So in things that have gone exceptionally well, we really should be including that in more branches because it worked so well in this case, or we need to look at some positives too, because we have created some beautiful spaces, absolutely beautiful spaces.
I think that's an important point, and the thing is, it's true, really with Waterdown, we're dealing with a very long delay. There have been some issues with specific problems at Waterdown that we're still working through, so there's no question that there were problems around that. I was talking to one of the librarians yesterday. We were launching Telling Tales yesterday, and she was talking about how positive she works with the mums there doing the story times, and how happy people are using the space and how many people are using the space. So I think it's wise for us as we look at, okay, what didn't work that we can improve on. Let's make sure we don't what did work and you know, overcorrect to the point that we're stepping backwards. And it has been very positive. I think when we're going to do a report on Carlisle next month, and I think it would be good to also show some, Karen's been getting some numbers on Waterdown. We can pull some numbers on Waterdown too, to show, the numbers are good at Carlisle.
They're very good.
What's that?
They're very good. Waterdown, Carlisle's holding its own. If
Yes.
anybody is interested after 5 months of operation of Waterdown, Carlisle is very much
I think
holding
what
its own.
it's, you know what, it's almost to me like the Terryberry Turner Park, where we thought when we built Turner Park, we would lose Terryberry customers. What ended up happening is Terryberry is now busier than Turner Park, but a whole new set of customers have been created in Turner Park that probably weren't being served. So overall, you get significant net growth. And I think what we're going to see from Waterdown is that we're not seeing a decrease so far in Carlisle, but what we are seeing is a lot more Waterdown residents using the library.
I think also that, just to comment, Nikki, I think also that even though this is anecdotal at this point, that apparently there are many, many young families moving into the Carlisle area. That's assisting with keeping the numbers up. We won't know for sure until the census can be analyzed, but these are working on old information at this point. But anecdotally, at least, there's a lot of growth in a place like Carlisle, and that happens. Populations shift. It changes. Can I get Vicki first, please? Okay, Vicki?
I was just wondering, when do you envision a fuller report on Waterdown? In the fall, in the late fall, at the beginning of next year? Is that?
Well, I think the reality is that there's going to be, like, a final report is going to take some time, partly because we're in a year of warranty, and we talked about this. So we're working through the list of deficiencies with the vendor. I understand they're still making progress. What I'd suggest is, I think and instead of me trying to assume when that could happen, we're going to be having a new director of finance and facilities coming in soon. We have now acting manager of finance and facilities that's getting their heads around all these projects, and so we'll report back.
Okay.
But I guess my assumption is not, like
It won't be next month.
Yeah, that's
No.
right.
Jennifer?
Just a thought on the numbers, even though we don't have census data, we have partnerships with the 2 school boards. Could we not ask them about their enrollments? I mean, at kindergarten would show you a snapshot of slightly older children, but if you're seeing massive growth in the kindergarten area, the chances are there's younger siblings that are in the community as well, as we've seen happen in Denbrook and other areas of the city that are exploding.
That's a good suggestion. We'll follow up.
Maria? Councilor Fury?
No, that's
Councilor
okay.
Pearson.
And great suggestion, Jennifer, and that's also the school board in our area is doing great. They're looking at closures of schools and building new schools, so all of that, those numbers should be available for the library as well, and their public documentation. It's called the ARC, the area new combination. I've seen the binder in my eyes. I just wanted to touch on, because going through the report and just reading it, that you've got on page 2 of 3, it says contract incentives to avoid delays. Now, you are aware that we did a contract when we were on the renovations for City Hall, and I was on that subcommittee, and we had quite a good contract that was laid out with the company that saw, and I can't give you all the points, but I'm sure staff can, where if there were savings, the savings that would be divided equally between the contractor and the city. And there were savings. The contractor was on time, it was on budget, and everything had to be met exactly what was laid out in the contract. So that might be something to look at as far as the city staff being able to give you sort of capture that information to put forward in our own contracts.
Thank you, Councilor. Any further questions, comments? All in favor? Thank you. And then we'll move on to the next item, which is borrowing parameters, may I have a mover and seconder, please? Councilor Pearson and Claire, Melanie and Lita, this is you guys. Go ahead.
So last month, Lita gave a presentation on the 7 Million Club and our strategies to help the general decline in circulation. And we feel that we have a very good strategy, but in order to fully execute that, we feel that adjusting the borrowing parameters will help us in many ways. Just to let you know, every time an item is renewed, it is an additional CERC. So to say that something can be renewed twice and then has to be returned even though someone doesn't want it, seems a little counterintuitive to us. So that's basically what we're trying to achieve. We also feel this is a very good customer service element as well, to be able to renew those items. Because not all of us can read a book in a week or 3 weeks, or some of us, this would give them a lot more time. So we're going to increase the number of renewals we're suggesting from 2 to 5. For 50 holds, we're suggesting that that could increase to 75. And similarly, for those super users who want more than 50 items, to be consistent and change that to 75. So again, not doubling it, but it's significant increases. And Lita and I are happy to answer any of your questions or address any of your concerns with this proposal.
Questions?
I just wanted a clarification. You did say that if there is a hold, then they could not renew. Okay.
Any other questions?
Question and a comment.
Comments,
So irritated. I renewed, because I'm one of these people who take 3 months because I only read this month. Yeah, and so then I have to go back here and bloody well get it again. I'm done. I agree. I mean, that's like, we did it just for you.
Same as the pop-up.
Pop-up library and extended holds, all in one meeting.
Second floor
I'm
checker.
very thankful.
Any other questions or comments?
So these changes are being made on everybody's cards. So everybody will have the opportunity to have 75 holds or renew 5
A
times.
full privilege,
Full-
a full privilege.
A full privilege card. Thank you.
Anybody else? All in favor? Thank you.
Thank you.
And we move on to, we have no correspondence today, so we move on to reports. The chief librarian's report will go first. Can I have a mover and a seconder to start with the chief librarian's report? Vicki and John. And,
I'll just answer any questions, but you can see there's a bit of information about Sherry Vicki, who we're happy to welcome, as we've already done, and on June 6, 20 Delmonico will be joining HPO, who's worked for the city for about 15 years, most recently as manager of accounting services. So he comes to the library with a lot of city experience. And Milan Vincent has been a great addition as our acting manager of finance and facilities, and she's been picking up where Juliana left off on lots of things. I'll answer any questions you may have.
Just out of curiosity, so for the, you have an acting manager of finance and facilities as an interim position while you're recruiting a permanent?
Yeah, good question. What's happening with that is that we thought 2 things. We wanted the new director to be able to hire it's a key manager position. So we created a 6-month contract. And we have a policy that if we ever have a permanent vacancy, we always, or non-union, we always post internally and externally at the same time. So that's what we'd be doing sometime later this year. Does that answer your question?
go ahead, okay, no, there's no one else.
And then is there a policy for an acting manager to be able to apply for the position on a permanent basis? Or is Milan then excluded from applying for that position?
She wouldn't be excluded, and we don't we don't exclude people. It would just be like, you know, we have staff that are in different capacities all the time that apply for positions. So the rule we've always followed, the policy we follow, is we always do a internal and external posting so that it's the position is advertised, and so we'll follow that policies that
All in favor? Next, we have the report from the Policy and Review Committee. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Doug and Susan. I just want to make one comment. I think Vicki's commented it out on the report, but I just wanted to draw your attention to the fact that there is an in-camera comment on page, I don't have a page number, I think it's the second page in of the CEO's performance appraisal where we talk about in camera, and that's just the placeholder, the words in camera there, basically a placeholder until we discuss our in camera policy. I just want to make that clear to everybody. And Vicki, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. I had this on, but it's okay. So there are three parts to my presentation tonight. The first one is the minutes from our very last meeting, and that was the 9th of May, where we incorporated all of the comments that we received from board members on the two documents that were given to you before. And again, I would like to, on behalf of the full committee, I'd like to thank those comments that were given to us. And the suggestions and the comments we received helped us to make a much better final version of the documents that you have before you. If we could start with the C, I'm assuming that the acceptance is going to be at the end for all three items, or is it going to be one by one?
Possibly it might be better to do it one by one, because if someone has an issue with one, then it doesn't hold up the whole package.
Okay, fine. So then, are there any questions on the minutes? No?
Okay, can we have a mover and a seconder? Teresa, it has to be, wait, perhaps it has to be moved? It has to be, I am. Okay. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Can I have a mover and a seconder, Doug, and a seconder, John, to accept the minutes? All in favor? Okay, next Vicky.
Okay, so if we could now move to the CEO performance appraisal document. You will notice that the material that we have added is in the purplish color, and the main additions or changes that were made are the bullet number 3 and 4, which is a clarification of the format of the CEO's self-assessment and the board's discussion of this self-assessment. On page 35 and 36, we have clarification of how the CEO's goals are to be established and how the discussion of the CEO's performance appraisal will be conducted. And to that, I have been asked by George to explain his objections to this. I was sent an email, and I am going to read verbatim without any comment from me. Is that?
I just want to clarify, is this to do with an in-camera item? I just want to be sure.
No, it's doing.
No, it's about
It's the process of the performance.
Whether something we should go for.
I just want to be sure. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Hi, Vicki. In follow-up to our last meeting, you asked me to address my concerns again to you so that you could bring my objections to the attention of the board at next week's meeting. Specifically, my objection and the reason I voted against this draft of the Policy Review Committee, I believe that the CEO goals should be developed and discussed in public, not in camera as the policy currently specifies. And that is the comment that you have on your version. To be clear, and I'm continuing with George's email, to be clear, CEO goals, bracket, which are effectively the organization's goals, bracket, should be developed, debated, discussed, and approved in public. The CEO should report on the results and status of those goals, bracket, per his or her opinion, bracket, in public. Measuring the CEO's performance against those goals, bracket, evaluation of the CEO's performance with regards to the goals, bracket, would be done in camera. This would be consistent both with the city's standard for its handling of the city manager's goals and performance report, bracket, for example, City Council General Issues Committee meeting May 4th, bracket, and also is the only action that would be consistent with section 16.1, bracket 4 of the Public Libraries Act, since the CEO/organizational goals are not, quote, labor relations, end of quote, or, quote, personal matters, end of quote. I do not believe it is correct, bracket, or legally justifiable under the Public Libraries Act, bracket, to pass the version of this policy with the in-camera indications in place as they currently are in the schedule and process sections. Thank you for your consideration of my concerns, George.
If I just may, I think the whole issue here was that we were going to leave the in-camera there as a place marker only so that we could pass the policy. We're going to have a very full discussion on the in-camera philosophy and the board's view of the proper use of in-camera, and at that time, whatever that the product of that discussion will affect this particular policy, as it will any other policy that we have that uses the term in-camera once we've defined in-camera. And we didn't want to hold up the passing of this particular policy because we don't have an opportunity at this point to have the full discussion of the in-camera philosophy. Claire?
My only thought on that, and I don't know what the process would be, is could we say discussion with the board following in-camera policy as opposed to having to explicitly state in-camera? Because it's not going to, by changing the policy of in-camera, that will change the definition of the term in-camera. But if we just here are able to use the language complying with the in-camera policy, that would then, we wouldn't have to change this language later on. It would just be addressed at that point.
No, if we decide that in camera, this is not going to happen in camera, all we have to delete from the policy are the two, is the place where it says in camera at the beginning, in the first bullet, under schedule and process. That's all we would have to change.
And if I may, I think once we define what is in camera and or not in camera, that will affect any policy anywhere that uses the term in camera. There may be other policies that we haven't even addressed yet that have in camera in them that the term in camera may just drop out because of our definition of when it's acceptable to use it and when it's not acceptable to use it. Excuse me, I think Susan was first, and then John, and then Susan, John, and then Jennifer.
The point that the in-camera label, as it were, could be talking about other things in the future, that's lovely, but this makes me very uncomfortable. I would prefer, because I totally agree with George in this case, we shouldn't confuse position and individual, good old labor model. But anyway, I would feel more comfortable if we took out this paragraph, no, line, this paragraph,
Where?
section, where we're talking about the organizational goals and CEO goals and should we, took that out because how can we turn around later on and say, oh, well, we approved that, but now we're going to change that. I just, I'm uncomfortable, but make me comfortable.
Okay.
No, John first.
Sorry.
And then Jennifer, and then Vicki, and then Claire. John.
George also sent an email, brought up the question of having a guest speaker come to the meeting for the Information Privacy Committee, if all possible, to talk more about what's acceptable in Canada. Acceptable. Have we considered that?
We haven't finalized anything happening on those lines
I
yet.
just think we'll consider that.
We will have to discuss that at some point. Jennifer.
So I too agree with George's comments that, now, George he separated his comments into two pieces, saying that the summary of the goals, and analysis of what's happened be done in public, because essentially the CEO's goals are the organizational goals. But then he's also separated it into a second part where we're talking about the personal goals that should be in camera. And that's not what I'm seeing in this document, that everything is in camera right now. And I think we need to make that separation, that the goals in November, where it sounds like it's the summary of what's happened for the current year and then what's going to happen in the following year, should be in public. So I think part of it, we can take out the in-camera piece because it doesn't need to be there at all. No matter what the new policy says, it doesn't need to be there.
Does, any further comment on that?
I just,
Go ahead.
and I think, Vicki, if we were to do that, just take out the reference to in-camera, then when we do the follow-up discussion on in-camera, we can provide clarity and make sure the board is on the same page around what elements should be in camera and what shouldn't be.
Okay.
And then it's addressed in that context, and we might even in the policy, or we could give some examples, CEO organizational goals, not, but I think that the concern is, so I think it's better that it's not specified, because there could be situations where they specifically relate to labor relations, that if the board doesn't enable me to go in camera, then we're either creating a significant risk or preventing the conversation from happening, and then board members are informed. So I think it's better if we have that discussion, and this should be treated not differently than other issues. And then I think then George will be here for that discussion, and we can handle that through.
Just a minute. Claire, did you have something?
Vicki was before me.
Okay, Vicki, go ahead.
I just wanted to point out that we did say that the discussion about the performance appraisal is all in camera. So the personal stuff is all in camera. And
It's
that's
just
at
the
the
goals.
end of, under the board discussions, it says the discussion of the performance appraisal with the CEO, which reflects the opinion of the library board, will be conducted by the chair and vice chair in a private setting. And at under bullet number 3, where it talks about the board will seek written self-assessment from the CEO on their previous year's performance, this self-assessment will then be discussed in camera. So that is all in camera. But, so the personal part is in camera. That's fine. We can take out the in camera from the discussions of the goals. That's not a problem. But I personally would not like to see any of the discussion on the personal CEO, whether it's Paul or someone else. I wouldn't like to see that covered.
Right, and that's exactly what George has said.
Claire, did you want to?
Yes.
Claire?
I just wanted to reiterate, I think what Paul is saying, it just makes good sense to me in some ways. I don't know why anywhere actually in this policy we would have to refer to in-camera or not when we have an in-camera guideline. And so if something came up related to any policy and section of that, I believe I'm repeating what Paul said, but it's really making a lot of sense to me. If any section of that was meant to be in camera because it was personal, why do we even have to reference it here? Because it would just be, it's based on our bylaws and our standards, I suppose. Right? Why do we have to repeat it?
Okay, can I answer, Claire? It was just that was what we were starting from, and that was what had been discussed with the working group on the CEO's performance. And the reason that we put in the comments is specifically to say, if in our discussion of the in-camera procedures, we come up with a much more detailed, then, as you say, anything that falls under those new sort of guidelines will automatically be covered by that, and we don't have to say in-camera.
But I would just to say, I don't know why there's an if. Like, we already have very detailed guidelines of what in-camera is, but I think, like, the ones that we were sent, that seem quite comprehensive to me and would already dictate, if you took in-camera references out of this entire policy, that would already dictate to us, if we're talking about Paul's personal goals, we go in camera. If we're talking about broader things and organizational goals, we wouldn't be. So I just don't know why there needs to be an if, I suppose.
How about this then? Can we just add a line at the beginning there that says something exactly what Claire's saying? Subject to the, whatever we're calling the in-camera policy, we'll review the process, then take out all the in-camera words in those the big bullets, and that should cover it all. So you're not saying anything specifically, you're saying the policy's going to cover this. We are adults, we are subject to legislation, we're going to figure out what pieces need to go in camera and what pieces don't, and just cover that way.
Can we word something to the effect of the following policy will reflect
Just subject to the in-camera policy.
It's subject to the in-camera policy as developed.
Yeah, the schedule, the
in-camera.
The discussions related to the CEO.
Will fall under in-camera policy, will fall under the guidelines of the in-camera, or the rulings of the in-camera policy. Okay, all right, shall we take it out then?
I'm taking out in-camera in the hall of the
Can I
board.
just clarify, then the only thing that you leave is that final discussion.
Is in private
Is in
setting.
private
And I think
That's a private
that enables.
That's more than in-camera.
That has nothing to do with the board.
No,
The
that
meeting.
is more than in-camera. Okay, can we move those? Okay, having said that, can we pass this policy, can we make those changes?
Okay, just so I'm clear, are we inserting a line anywhere, or I think I heard Karen say that it's not necessary?
It's not, yeah, we're gonna take it out. We're gonna take out the words.
Yeah, we're gonna take in camera out, but I also heard something about adding a line saying subject to.
Well, it's not necessary if we take it out and we have another policy. That policy kicks in whenever it needs to kick in.
Okay, fine. So in camera goes out from the document, including the comments that were added. The 2 comments on the side.
Okay, can we pass this policy with those changes today? Okay, with amendments?
With amendments.
Okay, can I have a mover and a seconder, Suzanne and Jennifer, all in favor to pass this document with amendments? Okay, next, back to you, Vicki.
All right, the last document are the bylaws. And again, there were some additions and changes. The main additions and changes are on page 39, where we have added provisions for additional quote-unquote officers to be notified if the chair / or the vice chair or / both are absent. On page...
Never on the same plane.
Okay. Okay, On page 40, we added page 40.
And like I've got pages.
What number is it? What number?
3.5. 3.5.
3.5, sorry.
Okay.
Sorry. On 3.5, the Chief Executive Officer, we have added information about the monitoring of the CEO's performance and have added a link to the CEO performance appraisal document. On 4.0, the Members' Code of Conduct, we've added clarification regarding resignation from the board for members who become employees of either the Hamilton Public Library or the City of Hamilton. And 2, the resignation from the board if any member is running in an election at any level. The only other changes were just minor editorial changes. The fact of specifying, giving each of the sections in, for example, 5.0, it's now inaugural meeting and the elections, and other little standing committees which have individual. They had the title, but they didn't have an individual section.
Claire?
Yeah, I just wanted to say I think this format and the use of this committee, I really appreciate it. Just because this kind of stuff, if we bring this to every board meeting and we're trying to go through some of these types of details, it would become very tedious. So thank you to the group of people who have done
Keep it up, we're
this.
eating it up.
What was that?
Keep it up, we're eating it up. Do
No, but it really-
more
it
you want to
really
say?
I think it's really good.
Now, I just wanted to ask Jennifer, you had some comments. Is there anything further that you want to bring up? I just want to be sure. So we want this policy or Vicky.
No, it's my understanding that there has to be a formal notice of motion
Okay.
for this to be approved
Okay.
in the next
meeting.
meeting.
So it'll appear
On the next.
month as a notice of motion,
Okay.
that it just stops there, but final approval will be September.
Okay, fine. Okay, so that's in your hands. Capable hands. Anything further, Vicky?
Not that I have, but if there's any typos or stuff like that that I've omitted or anything else, please let us know, and we'll definitely get it into the final version before it's sent to Karen.
Well, I think it's a work of art, Vicky.
Thank you. But all the committee worked on it, so.
I have to say that, yes, the committee did work on it, and all of us did, and John and Doug and everyone did, but Vicky did a really good job on this and did really the lion's share of the work, so she deserves the lion's share of the credit. The next item on the committee, on the agenda is a report from the audit committee. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Is we member of the committee? A member of the committee, John and Jennifer. And John, the floor is yours.
The audit committee met this evening at 5 o'clock, and we went through with the representative from the firm, KPMG, and the report you have in your agenda. Hopefully we get a chance to look at it. Before we continue though, we talked about it briefly at the meeting, but again, congratulations to John for the job well done. Thank you. And very much appreciated. So you should organize that as well. So I have 3 motions, and hopefully the verbiage is appropriate. If not, Karen or Mary can help me out.
It'll be Karen.
Okay. So the first, I'd like a mover and a seconder to receive the report from the audit committee. Someone choose to move that, please?
Does it have to be a committee member?
I
Okay.
don't know. I think it's a board member, yeah.
Well, I'll stop.
Okay, so we'll have Vicky then, okay? Any questions? All in favor? Great. The second motion, I'd like approval that we receive the audit report. Second, Claire and Jennifer. Any questions? Sorry. All in favor? Great. And then the last one, I'd like the mover and seconder to approve the audit report, to approve the financial statement and the report on the trust fund. I have a mover from Mary Ann, and the seconder. And
Susan.
Susan, okay, Susan, didn't see that. We'll get her.